So I'm going to talk a bit about next a sort of view of what we're calling our ecosystem. And it really just has basically a sort of a picture of all those kinds of technologies prospectively tied in together. And, when, again, as I mentioned, you have a household with a home area network, rooftop solar, and an electric vehicle. I mean, you can do a lot with that. Because in my view, an electric vehicle is really it's a mobile power plant as far as I'm concerned. And that's the way we look at it. That is storage on wheels. And if you can get those storage points or those power plant points to the grid during peak in aggregate, incredible value, and typically somewhat indifference to the customers. Nobody really sort of needs to get home to charge their vehicles between 5 and 7. Typically, we have electric vehicles in our fleet, and I've been driving one for about 3 weeks now, second phase, and I typically plug it in before I go to bed, and it's charged the next morning, all off peak. So I think there's incredible value to if we can get these mobile points to places that can discharge back into the grid. Again, the trick is it's got to be in areas that are of value to us. And so actually we have talked to Dr. Wright and hopefully help some smart graduate students help us figure out some of these algorithms. But it's going to take thought, but it can be done. But first you've got to have the technologies out there. So if you back up a little bit, for us at CPS Energy, we have a vision by the year 2020 to have 20% renewables capacity in our fleet, and for our fleet to be 65% or more low carbon intense. And so we have a partial storage mechanism for that. Back in 2007, our board allocated, I think, $700 million for $700 million for us to reach a goal of 700, I think, 49 megawatts of demand reduction. So we have a funding mechanism that helps us. So instead of spending that money on a power plant, our board says spend the money ahead of time. It's in rate base, but reduce demand. And so we've been fairly aggressive in doing so. So it also includes, some of the sort of the stock ceiling insulation, sort of conservation tools, but it's also allowed us to bring in home area networks. It's allowed us to have a fairly competitive solar rebate program and subsidy program. So to do a lot of things that are merely making an impact and helping us get towards that goal. So we have, I think, about 250 megawatts of demand we've reduced so far, including conservation. So some of that, of course, erodes over time, but we're on a pretty aggressive, accelerated path towards that. So that's all things that we're doing. But this is just kind of a visual of how all this ties together. And so I'm not going to go over all this. I'm going to leave it up long enough so you can take a look at it. But this is innovation. And for us at Utilities, one of the fun things about doing what we do is this is innovation applied, and that's important. So we are not just thinking about it; we're actually bench testing it and applying it, and everything inside that little core there, sort of as this little, I guess, inner core here, sort of as a capitalist. That's value, and that's innovation. So, so additionally, we make the case that innovation and value are not necessarily mutually exclusive. That there is a path, and the path is somewhat different for almost every entity because, again, we are vertically integrated, and we are in a market that supports that. But if you can put it all together, you have innovation advancement and you have value. And oh, by the way, we're talking to Nest, we're talking to Google, we're talking to a whole lot of people because, again, we'd rather say, well, ultimately for me, I insist that we CPS Energy need to stay between, we can't let anybody between us and our customer. So if someone's going to get to our customers, we want them to come through sort of the portal of CPS first. So we'd rather work with them. And generally, they're all agreeable. We're talking to Solar City, and we're talking to a whole lot of other entities that I wouldn't be allowed to mention publicly. But there's a path to make this all work, and we are delighted to be sort of at the leading edge of innovation, and not doing it just because for ideology's sake. But we run a $2 billion revenue business, so there's got to be value for it, and we have to keep rates low. We have a very, very rate-sensitive customer base in San Antonio, and so somehow, so far, we managed to piece that all together. But we're excited about the path we're on, and I just think the world is going to change a lot. I said to Dr. Riley before I got up that to me this is somewhat analogous to from going from mainframes to PCs, from going from the big bells to the baby bells. It's changing big time now. You got much more capital investment because you're talking about billions of dollars, but I don't think the regulators are going to be very, very agreeable to going back and saying implement a charge for stranded investment this time. It's just not going to happen. So you got to figure out a way. I think it happened the first time when deregulation occurred. But again, these are technologies, and they're already in your household. Many of you who either game or have kids who game, they're there already. If you got cable TV, they're there already. If you have a security system, they're there already. So the sort of disruptive, in a good way, intruders are already there, and we're going to find a way to work with them. So anyway, that concludes my comments, and I have, I think, 14 minutes for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Doyle, you mentioned that you take your electric car home at night and are smart enough or conscientious enough not to plug it in until after peak demand time. Do you have time of use rates for your customers so they have an incentive to do what you perhaps do because it's morally correct?
We don't have time of use. I think that's something coming down the pike for us. But again, we do have home area networks that cover a big part of that. So our customers are achieving about 8 to 10% reduction in their bills. That's without even applying much thought to when they program their major appliances to come down to reduce demand. So I think that's something we'll get to. But even if you don't think about it, by the way, survey after survey says that the average customer thinks about their energy management, I think like 6 seconds a year or something bizarre. So I'm in the business and I don't think about this. I haven't looked at a bill in years. Generally my wife looks at that. But the point is, when I come home, there's nothing to think about. It just to me it seems intuitive. But having said all that, I think very soon you're going to see our home area network be able to turn it on and off for them. You just plug it in and walk away, and it will charge at midnight or whenever prices are low.
Well, the car already has those smarts, too.
Yeah.
But again, where is the incentive of the customer to take advantage of it?
Well, I think ultimately the incentive will be low rates. But at some point, there might be another incentive if we end up getting time of use. But we've done focus groups. And that 8 to 10% means a lot to them, trust me, and they notice. So right now we haven't had people clamor for that, especially with the home area network product out there.